Welcome back, friends. Today is Prompt I, and it's all about interactivity. And this page features a unique flip-in that I first saw over at Letras Literarias. There weren't any how-to steps, but last Christmas I figured out the dimensions and made it my own. So I created the base using a sturdy index card, some manila paper, and a bit of embossing folder magic. Plus, there's a built-in pocket on the side. So yes, we've got an insert too. Let's get to it. So here I'm showing you the base, and I was deciding, not quite sure, did I want to use something sturdier, and I opted to do that. So I'm showing you that my base is 3 by 6. The flip-in is also 3 by 6 in size, and you're going to need 2 pieces of cardstock for that. You can choose the way that you want. I would suggest 24 to 32 pound type cardstock. Here you're going to see the 3 by 6 piece of photocopy paper that I'm using, and I'm starting with a 1/2 inch measurement from the top. Then I'm going to draw a line. I want to slow this part a little bit because I want you to grasp the different measurements and the steps. So now I'm going to turn my 3 by 6, and on the 6 inch side, I'm going to measure 1/2 inch in, and I'm going to do the same on the other side, and I'm going to draw lines on both sides here, and I will have a little bit of music on the background. But this is a super easy flip in. It's a little challenging to see it at first, but because, like I said, there were no how-to steps, I started playing around and figured out some measurements, and I had a complete blast. And as I said earlier, you might want to consider, if you want, test this on just regular photocopy paper, and then choose the actual finished, the final project that you want to work on, to preferably be at least 24, 27. I would say no more than 32 weight, because then it would be really difficult for the mechanism to work. So then you're going to measure from the top there 2 and an eighth of an inch. Okay. And then from 2 and an eighth inch, you're going to measure at a 1/2 inch, and then you're going to draw a line across. This is super easy to put together. At least this is for me. This is how I was able to concoct this flipping. And then you're going to turn it around, and you're going to measure from that 1/2 inch, you're going to measure 2 and an eighth inch, and the remainder will be a 1/2 inch. And you're going to need to cut a second piece of 3 by 6 piece of paper, and you're going to make 2 of these. Now you're going to take one of your 3 by 6 panels and only cut the 2 and 1/8 inch boxes on both. Correction, the first panel, that the 2 boxes that we cut, are 2 1/4, not 2 1/8. Now we're going to take the second panel and cut, as you can see there, at the end of the 2 1/4 section. And then you're going to, I'm measuring it here because I want to make sure I cut the right side. And you're going to cut at the 2 1/4 inch mark, and you're going to grab your ruler so that you can do one more measurement, if you will, which is basically the flip mechanism that we will be using for this fun interactive technique. So you're going to measure from the 1/2 inch, 1 and an eighth inch, okay? 1 and an eighth inch on the right side, and also on the left side. And then you're going to draw a line I kind of drew the line, I think, through across. You just want to do it on that half-inch uh, line that you'll see there. Oh, I did do it correctly on that one. I might do it on this one. I draw it straight through. So I'm just gauging here to make sure. 1 1/8 inch. And I'm going to do it again on the right side just to make sure. And here you're going to see the two pieces that you're going to need. And again, this will be, I'm erasing because I drew that line straight across and didn't need to, but just to give you a sense of what you'll need. Now you're going to cut from the bottom up to the 1 1/8 inch line that you drew. And again, these two sides are the flip mechanism that you will need. You're going to do it on both panels. And you're also going to, I'm erasing that mistake line that I made earlier. And I'm saying, please don't do that. But now you're going to, after you cut from the bottom up to the 1 1/8 inch line there, try not to go beyond that line. It's super, super important. You're going to turn your paper around and you're going to cut from the bottom up to the half-inch mark on both corners and on both pieces of paper. And here I'm showing you a little bit closer how I am cutting the additional half-inch little corners there up to that line, half-inch line, and then I'm moving those two flips a little bit so that I can cut that middle half-inch part on both pieces of cardstock or your paper of choice. Don't go beyond. You don't want to cut those little end squares because you're going to need that for that flipping mechanism. Here I'm showing you the mechanism, and before you put everything together, I'm also going to show you to consider rounding your corners if you would like, but that's how you want to fold those flaps. You definitely want to apply all your distressing if you enjoy doing so before you glue all these components together. So now you're going to apply glue on. I'm just moving this a little closer to the frame of the camera so that you can see how I am going to glue the flippin where it belongs. And right there is where you're going to apply your glue. To apply your glue on those four flaps, you're going to bring them down and press them into that half-inch side bar or panel, if you will, just like so. You want to take your time so that you're able to make sure that you stay within the measurement there. And then I'm just pressing a little bit more, making sure that it looks good. Here I'm showing you that when I glued it too far down, so it will kind of get stuck a little bit. And so I'm moving it a little further up. So it's something that you want to be mindful of when you're gluing it together. Test it a little bit, but it's a little hiccup that I feel is important for you to be aware of. So I wanted to keep that in the filming process of this tutorial. And now we're going to glue the remaining um, tabs that you'll see on the top. And I'm just fiddling around a little bit more to make sure that it's not going to rub when I create that flip motion. And now you're going to put glue on the top little squares that are a half inch on all four, you're going to apply glue. And that's what will be applied onto your base, whether it's a sturdy base or you just use your journaling page. You might want to consider putting an eyelet before you actually glue it onto your base. And now we're going to add those four little half-inch squares onto your base. Next, I want to walk you through the final piece that I will be putting into my journaling page, so you definitely want to stick around and see that process. Here I'm showing you the digital papers that I'm going to use for my base, and that I'm going to use that particular paper for the flip-in. And then for the actual base that I showed earlier, I'm going to put it in between my embossing folder and use my die cut machine to make that happen. And now I'm showing you the pieces that I've already cut out for the flip-in, and I'm also giving you a bit of a peek at as to how neat it looks, the base looks after I use the embossing folder. And I'm also going to apply that eyelet before I glue everything onto that base. Here I'm showing you that I use some distress ink stains and some other washes onto the base, and I just love that effect. It's truly so pretty. And as I said, it's super important before you glue everything down that you actually add that eyelet. And then I'm using just a little bit of ink to distress the area a bit more onto the base. So here are the illustrations of the beautiful flowers, and I did use some ISC stamps. I do use a stencil on the back and some distressing, something to keep in mind before you glue everything onto your final surface. And here is the layout that I'm thinking about. I did add some lace to the edge of the journal page, and I'm going to place that flip in like so. And there is my insert with some glue, of course. That's it for prompt I, and I'm honestly so in love with how this turned out. If you give this funky flip in a try, tag me or drop a comment. I'd love to see what you make with it. Don't forget to grab your freebie on my Ko-Fi, and I'll see you tomorrow for prompt J. Happy journaling, friends!